he gave it over to if he gave it over to an unpaid guardian, to a borrower, to a paid guardian, or to a renter, the latter is responsible in lieu of the owner. For a muad, he pays the full damages. For a tam, he pays half the damages. If its owner tied it with a rein or locked the stall before it properly and it went out and damaged, whether it's a tam or muad, he is liable. These are the words of Reb Meir. Reb Yehuda says the owner of a tam is liable. The owner of a muad is exempt, as it is said, and its owner does not watch it, and this one is watched. Reb Eliezer says no guarding, it is sufficient except the knife. And if a bull gores a cow and its fetus is found at its side and does not know whether it gave birth before it was gored or whether it gave birth after it was gored, the owner of the bull pays for half the damage done to the cow and 1/4 of the damage done to the young. Likewise, if a cow gores a bull and its young is found at its side and does not know whether it was gored before it gave birth or whether it gave birth after it gored after it gave birth, the owner of the cow pays half the damages from the cow or the 1/4 of the damages from the young.
Okay, now we got to pause over here and clarify that this Mishnah is not the halacha. This is according to Sumchus, right? The Sumchus's principle is when in matters of doubt, when you got a sapek, then you got to split the damages. But that's not the halacha, because we say hamotzi mechavera lavaraya. If you want to claim extra money, then prove it. And so there's no such thing as quarter damages or splitting it halfway. If you want to say that my cow damaged your cow when it was pregnant, then you must prove it. So that is the halacha. So that Mishnah is not the halacha. That's just the halacha according to Sumchus. Okay.
It doesn't. Is it all right? Then I got okay. If a pot, that was it. I think was that 3.
Oh, one more.
Okay. If potter brings his pots into another's yard without permission, and the other person's animal breaks them, he's exempt. If it is injured by them, the owner of the pots is liable. If he brings them in with permission, the owner of the yard is liable. If one brings his produce into another's yard without permission and the other person's animal eats them, he's exempt. If it is injured by them, the owner of the produce is liable. If he brings them in with permission, the owner of the yard is liable. Okay.
Yeah, so this is when you accept liability for something. So actually, again, that's also not the halacha what we see over there. That if just because you give a guy permission to put his pots in your yard doesn't mean that you're accepting to be a shomer. So the halacha actually follows Rebbe, whose opinion is not stated in his Mishnah, that you only become liable for the pots if you agree to be a shomer. But if you're just saying you have permission to put your pots there, doesn't mean that doesn't implicitly mean that you're taking on responsibility for them.
Right. It's the owner's responsibility.
Yeah. Okay. Gimel. Okay, so now he brings his shore into the chatzer of the Baal Habayis without permission. And the local watch ox takes exception to the intruder and attacks it and kills it. Or the Baal Habayis' dog went and bit it. Patur. It's completely there's no liability at all, obviously, because it was trespassing. So you can't the owner could not be expected to guard his animals against damaging a trespasser. But if the intruder attacked the animal of the Baal Habayis, then of course he's chayav. Now how much is he chayav? If it's a tam, then he pays chatzi nezek, and if it's a muad, then nezek shalem. But according to Rabbi Tarfon, even a tam in the Rishus HaNizak also pays nezek shalem. If you recall, we had that argument in Beit Hay. Right, there was an argument that he makes the kal v'chomer, and Chachamim say you can't make a kal v'chomer to more than what the original case was. Okay. Nafal leboro v'hiv ish meimav. What happens if the ox falls into the bore of the Baal Habayis and it drowns there and it makes the water disgusting? Chayav. He's chayav for the damages. The Baal Hashor has to pay for the owner's loss of his well. And by the way, because this is kind of a regel thing, because the ox walked into it. So and regel is always nezek shalem, because that's what they do all the time.
Wait, the regel is always Would you say shalom? What was the first
Regel
one?
is always shalem. It's always nezek shalem because animals always walk. So so any nezek that's caused by regel is automatically nezek shalem. Okay. Now what happens if his father or his son was inside the bore when the ox fell in and it killed the person who was in the well? The shalem is a kofir. Then the owner of the ox has to pay kofir for it. And that's the Gemara explains that this is talking about a shore that was muad for falling on top of people, and therefore you'd have to pay the kofir. But otherwise, it's still considered a tam. And the father or son is not dafka; it's just any person. We just mentioning a common example. There are those who say that our Mishna is like Rabbi Yossi Aglili and like Rabbi Tarfon, who hold that tam in Rosh Hashanah pays full damages, and that's the same thing for kofir shalem, that he has to still pay the kofir. And according to this, it's dafka that the Mishnah says aviv beno, so that he has to pay the kofir into the Rosh Hashanah. But for any other person, he's patur from kofir. Okay, the however, if the Baal Habayis gave him permission to bring his shore inside, then the Baal Chatzer is chayav if the shore was damaged by his own shore or the kelev. Again, this is I think this is again like not like Rebbe. There we go, Rebbe Omer. Rebbe Omer b'chulan eino chayav ad sheyikabel elav lishmor. So here we see Rebbe's opinion stated explicitly that he's not chayav unless the Baal Habayis is not chayav unless he explicitly takes on his own. It takes on to be the shomer for the animal. Okay, but if he just gave him stam rishus, okay, you can bring your shore inside here. Then he doesn't have any responsibility or liability, and the halacha is like Rebbe.
But if he brings it in with permission, so he has permission from the owner of the yard to bring the shore in, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and he falls in the pit. The shore falls in the pit.
Mm-hmm.
The owner of the yard is liable because he gave permission.
Right, that's the opinion of the Tana Kammma, but Rebbe comes and disagrees.
And the halakha is like
Rebbe.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Okay. I didn't turn the page where it says Rebbe. Now I see it.
Okay. Shor shehaya miskabin lechavero, v'hikais ha'isha v'yatzeu yeladeha. Okay, so what happens is a shore was aiming to attack another shore, and the other shore moved out the way, and there was a pregnant woman behind. So it struck the woman, and she miscarried. Okay. Now the Baal HaShor is patur from Demei Velados. He doesn't have to. The Torah doesn't like if a person struck a woman and caused her to miscarry, then he has to pay damages for the loss of the woman's baby. Okay, but because the ox wasn't aiming for the woman, so therefore it's patur. However, but Adam Shahayim is coming lechaver v'hikaisa isha v'yatzu yeladea meshalem demei velados. But if a person was aiming to hit another person, and the guy moved out the way and he hit the woman instead, okay, then he does have to pay the demei velados. He does have to pay for the loss of the baby to the woman's husband. Okay, why? What's the difference over here? Of course, because Adam is muad leolam. A person, no matter what he does, he's going to be chayav for his damages that he causes, even if he causes them sort of accidentally. Okay. Ketzad meshalem demei velados. How do you pay demei velados? Shamin es ha'isha kama hi yafa ad shelo yalda v'kama hi yafa mi sheyalda. Work out how much would a woman be worth to be sold as a slave if she's pregnant versus if she's not pregnant. Okay, so that way you can see what's the difference. How much was the blood worth? Okay, Amar Rav Shem Gamliel in Cain, Misha Isha Yoledes Mashvachas. It should be the other way, because a woman who's pregnant, is less valuable. Why? Because she is still carrying the risks of an upcoming childbirth. Okay, she doesn't have, and it's child pregnancy is risky, childbirth is risky. So a slave owner would probably want to buy a non-pregnant woman rather than a pregnant one, because he doesn't want to take a chance that she's going to get injured or die during a pregnancy. Okay, rather, what you got to do, says Rabban Shimon Gamliel, is estimate the value of the blood of the unborn baby, how much an unborn baby would be worth if someone could buy a future of an unborn baby. No saying the bal, and that's what you give to the husband. Okay, so okay. So the Gemara explains that Rabban Shimon Gamliel is talking about a mubakeres, in other words, a woman who's pregnant for the first time. Okay, because she is in the highest risk category, which is probably true. It just feels right, statistically speaking, that a woman giving birth for the first time, her birth canal hasn't opened before, and once somebody's given birth a couple times, it's a lot easier. Okay.
It's interesting. I think that they're not talking about how much the fetus is worth in terms of is it like a 3-month fetus, or is it like an 8-month fetus? But 3 months is almost ready to give birth. It would be worth more, you would think, but they don't talk about that.
But I think that is implicit in what Rabban Shimon Gamliel is saying, is that look at how much the fetus is worth. Is that if somebody's like it's still in their sort of first trimester and just dying to show, that's not going to be worth as much as somebody who's just about to give birth, because you're now past all the risky parts of the pregnancy, and you've already got basically a viable fetus at this point. Even if she gives birth now, chances are the fetus will live. So yeah, that's kind of included in when he said just look at the fetus, how much it's worth. And if she does not have a husband, then it's given to Yorshav, to the Yorshin. Now, which Yorshin? The Yorshin or the Baal. And the others explain that even if he struck the woman and after the death of her husband, nonetheless the Demei Blados goes to the Yorshim of the husband. But there are other opinions. That's the opinion of Tosfos, Sarosh, and Ravad. But others say that if he struck her during her husband's lifetime and then the husband died, that's when you give the Demei Blados to the Yorshim. But if he struck the woman after she was widowed, then she gets the Demei Blados, because now she's no longer in her husband's domain. And this is the opinion of Rambam, which seems a little more logical to me. But who might to stick my head between Rambam and all the other Rishonim? Anyway, so if she was a slave and she had been freed, or Giores, and or if she was a convert, then she was part. In other words, she was pregnant from having if the pregnant woman who got hit, and she was married to an Ebed Meshuchrar, or to a Ger who doesn't have any Yorshim, okay, or a Giores, and married to a Ger, or to an Ebed Meshuchrar. In other words, the husband died after the attack. Let's just make it easier and say, even according to Rambam, that he struck her during the lifetime of her husband, then her husband died, and now she comes to court. They're going to say Pater because he doesn't have any Yorshim.
Oh.
If he had Yorshim, then he would have to pay. But since there are no Yorshim, say who's he going to pay to? He might as well just keep the money himself. Yeah. Mishna, hey, bor birshos yachid. So he's in his own property and he digs a nice big hole. And now he opened it up into the public domain. Okay. The culture can okay. Or he was in the Rishus HaRabim and he dug this hole, and he opened it up into his private domain. ברשות היחיד ופסח לרשות היחיד אחר, or it was in his private domain and opened it in somebody else's private domain. Of course, he is chayav for any damage caused by the boar. The general rule is that everything goes after the boar after it has been opened, and it doesn't matter where the base of the boar is.
Right.
Right. So in other words, you have a boar that where the base of the it's 10 tvachim down into his property, but it's but it opens up into the Rishus Harabim, so somebody could slip into his property from the Rishus Harabim. It doesn't matter what the case is. If it's in Rishus that's not his, then he's going to be chayav for it. So if he digs his bore in the Rishus Harabim and an ox or a donkey falls in and dies, then he's chayav. Okay, that's the simple case. But it doesn't matter what kind of hole it is. If it's a bore, which is just a hole, okay, or shiach, which is a long and narrow one. So, or ma'ara, which is a
wedge-like ditches.
Right.
Wedge-like,
okay.
right.
Or charitzin, which is they're wide and square like a mara, but they're not covered. Or neitzin, which is chafirot shein tzarot milamata v'rechavot milamala. So those are kind of the wedge-shaped ones. I think we're talking about neitzin. Doesn't matter what the shape is of the bor tachlis. It's chayev in whatever nezikin it does. In kain lama ne'mar bor. So why does the Torah talk about a bor? Ma bor sheyesh bo kedei lahamis asar tvachim af kol sheyesh bo kedei lahamis asar tvachim. So it's just to it extends to any other thing that fits into the category of being deep enough to kill, which is 10 tvachim. So it's not that deep. 10 tvachim really isn't that deep.
Oh, it's not.
Okay, it's about as high as a table. That's about 10 tvachim high, I think, this table. So if you make a bore that big, that's enough to cause the death of an animal. So if it was less than 10 tvachim, if an animal fell in and died from that, then that's not that he's not chayav for that, because it looks like there was something wrong with that animal. If it fall into a little depression in the ground, it was enough to kill it, then it seems like it was a problem with the animal that fell in. But if it just fell in and broke a leg or something, it didn't die, then nonetheless, even for a small boar, he is still chayav.
Right. Okay.
All right. Chazara on base hay.
Base hay. A bull that damages while on the premises of the damagee, how is that? If it gored, pushed, bit, lay down, or kicked in a public domain, he pays half the damages. On the premises of the damagee, Reb Tarfon says the full damages, and if the Kammma say, however, half the damages. Reb Tarfon said to them,
this is exactly what we were talking about earlier.
Reb Tarfon said to them, seeing that where the Torah was lenient regarding the shein and the regel in the public domain, that exemption is granted. It nevertheless dealt stringently regarding them in the premises of the damagee, that the full damages be paid. Where the Torah dealt stringently with Karen in the public domain, that half the damages be paid. Is it not right that we should deal stringently with it in the premises of the damagee, that the full damages be paid? They said to him, it is enough from the inferred law to be strict as that from which is inferred. Just as the public domain half the damages must be paid, so must the damages be paid in the premises of the damagee. He said to them, I will not derive Karen from Karen, I will derive Karen from regel, seeing that where the Torah dealt leniently regarding shein and regel, in the public domain it dealt stringently regarding Karen, where the Torah dealt stringently with shein and regel in the premise of the damagee. Is it not right that we should deal stringently with Karen? They said to him, it is enough for the inferred law to be as strict as that from which it is inferred. Just as the public domain half the damages must be paid, so must the damages be paid in the premises of the damagee. Man is always muad, whether unintentionally or intentionally, whether awake or asleep. And if he blinded another's eye and broke vessels, he pays the full damages. If one leaves a jug in a public domain and someone else comes along and stumbles over it and breaks it, he is exempt. If he is injured by it, the owner of the jug is liable for his injury. If one's jug broke in a public domain and someone slipped on the water or was hurt by the shards, he is liable. Rabbi Yehuda says, if he intended, he is liable. If he did not intend, he is exempt.
Okay.
All right, we are into Gittin.
Yeah.
Gittin, we have Vav base. If a woman said, receive my get from me, she needs two pairs of witnesses, two who say she and so in our presence, and two who say he received it in our presence, and he tore it up. Even if the first witnesses are the same ones as the second witnesses, or if one from the first pair and one from the second, and another joined with each of them. A Nara is betrothed, she and her father can receive her get. Rabbi Yehuda said, two harsh hands cannot make acquisition as one, rather her father alone receives her get. And anyone who is unable to take care of her get cannot be divorced. If a minor girl said, receive my get from me, it is not a get until it reaches her hand. Therefore, if the husband wants to retract, he can retract because a minor cannot appoint an agent. But if a father said to him, go receive my daughter's get for her, and if she wants to retract, she cannot retract. If one says, give this get to my wife in such and such a place, and he gave it to her in such a different place, it's void. If he said she is in such and such a place and he gave it to her in a different place, it's valid. A woman said, receive my get for me in each such and such a place, and they received it for her in a different place, it's void. If Eliab validates it, and if she said, bring my get from such and such a place, and he brought it to her from a different place, it's valid. Then we say that a minor a girl can't accept the get. Or can she can't?
But you can't appoint a shaliach.
Yeah, this is just a shliach. They can't do it.
Right.
The father.
There's no shlichus for the tata.
Can the father appoint a shliach for her?
Right. That's exactly what the Mishna is saying. Is that the father has the right to appoint a shliach on her behalf. One more.
Oh, okay. If a woman said, bring me my get, she may eat truma until the get reaches her hand. If she said, receive my get from me, she is forbidden to eat truma immediately. If she said, receive my get from me in such and such a place, she may eat truma until the get reaches that place. If Eliezer prohibits it immediately. Okay.
Zion Gimel.
You're not in Kasubas? I thought it was.
Oh, sorry, I forgot that. I forgot the Kasubas.
Okay.
You're fine, you're right.
Okay. Well, that's not often. Okay. If a widow says, I do not wish to remove from my husband's house, the heirs cannot say to her, go to your father's house and we will support you. Rather, they must support her in her husband's house, and they give her a residence according to her honor. So they give her a residence according to her honor, but she can't stay in the husband's house.
No, she can. That's exactly what they're saying. They can. She does stay in her husband's house.
It says they must support her in her husband's house, and they give her a residence according to her honor.
Right. They must keep. Like, she still stays in the house, and they can't just put her in like the servants' quarters or whatever. Like, just get out of our faces. That she has. She's got to live in the same way that she was living before.
Okay. If she says, I do not wish to move from my father's house, the heirs may say to her, if you are with us, you will have sustenance. But if you're not with us, you will have no sustenance. If she claims that is because she is young and they are young, they must support her while she is in her father's house. As long as she is in her father's house, she can collect the ksuba forever. As long as she is in her husband's house, she can collect the ksuba until the end of 25 years. For in 25 years, she has the opportunity to do favors corresponding to the amount of her ketsuba. These are the words of Rameya, which is stated in the name of Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. The sages, however, say, as long as she is in her husband's house, she may collect the ketubah forever. As long as she is in her father's house, she may collect the ketubah until the end of 25 years. If she dies, her heirs may claim her ketubah until the end of 25 years. Two judges of decrees were in Yerushalayim, Adman and Hanan ben Avishalom. Hanan says two things. Adman says 7. If someone went overseas and his wife didn't sustenance, Hanan says she must swear at the end, but she not swear at the beginning. The sons of the Kohen Gedolim differed with him and said she must swear both at the beginning and at the end. Reb Dosa ben Harkinis concurred with their view. It said Rabbi Yochanan and Ben Zakkai Hanan has said, well, she need not swear except at the end. Okay.
Now we can do it. Now the Arab.
Okay, Arabin, we have Vav Gimel. If a trench between two cars is 10 deep and 4 wide, they may make 2 Arabin, but one may knock 1 Arab, even if it is filled with stubble or straw. If it is filled with earth or pebbles, they may make 1 Arab, but they may not make 2 Arabin. If one place a board which is 4 fists wide across it, similarly, if 2 balconies are opposite each other, they may make 2 Arabin, or if they wish, they may make 1 Arab less than this. Then they may make 2 Arabin, but not more than 1 Arab. If a haystack between 2 yards is 10 fists high, they may make 2 Arabin, but they may not make 1 Arab. They may feed from this side, and those may feed from that side. If the hay was reduced to less than 10 fists, they may make 1 Arab, but they may not make 2 Arabin. How do we make a shift to for now?
Yeah.
Was that it? That was it. Okay. Okay, we have mikvos.
Good Vav.
A Yud Vav. Beis Shammai says we may not immerse hot water in cold water, or cold water in hot water, or clean water in foul water, or foul water in clean water. Beis Hillel says we may so immerse them. But if one immersed a vessel that is filled with liquid, it is as though it was not immersed. But if it is filled with urine, it is regarded as water. If it is filled with purification water, it is not cleansed unless the water of the mikveh is more than the purification water. Reb Yossi says even a vessel with the capacity of a quart contains only 1 revius of these liquids, it is as though it was not immersed. All foods can combine to make up the amount of half a pras that disqualifies a person, and all liquids can combine to make up the amount of a revius that disqualifies a person. This is astringency. In the case of drinking Tommy liquids over the case of a mikvah, they made other liquids the same as the water. If one ate tummy foods or drank tummy liquids and then immersed himself and then vomited them up, they remain tummy, because they do not become purified in the body. But if he drank tummy water and then immersed himself and then vomited up, it is tahor because he becomes purified. It can become purified in the body. Okay. Let me just see here a second. Okay. When we finish mikvos, we're going to go on to.
With this, there's more of this Mishna.
You're right. Okay, sorry. If one swallowed a ring that is tahor and he entered a tent containing a corpse, and then he himself sprinkled upon, and the sprinkling repeated, and he immersed himself, and then he vomited up, it was as before. If one followed a ring that is tamei, he can immerse himself and eat truma. Then he vomits it up, and it is still tamei, and he renders it tamei. An arrow is stuck in a person when he is visible. When it is visible, it intervenes. And if it is not visible, he may immerse himself and eat truma.
Adran Allah Masechet Mikvas.
And
Masechet is Nida.
Nida, okay. All right. Kulin. We just finished Kulin, didn't we?
Not quite.
Excuse me?
Not yet.
Wait a minute. We did finish Kulin though. Before, didn't we?
We finished Chulin many times, but not recently.
Okay. Tesvav. The egg of a sheretz in which an embryo has been formed is tahor, and it has been punctured even slightly, it is tamei. A mouse that is half flesh and half earth, if one touches the flesh, he's tamei, and if one touches the earth, he's tahor. The Yehuda says even if he touches the earth opposite the flesh, he is tamei. The limb and the flesh that dangle on an animal convey the tumah of foods in their place, but require preparation. If the animal is slaughtered, they become prepared through its blood. These are the words of Reb Meir, but Reb Shimon says they do not become prepared. And if the animal dies, the flesh requires preparation, and the limb conveys tuma as a limb of a live creature. But it does not convey tuma as a limb of an avela, and these are the words of Reb Meir, but Reb Shimon declares it tahor. A dangling limb and flesh of a man are tahor. If the man dies, the flesh is tahor. The limb conveys tuma as a limb severed from a living person, but it does not convey tuma as a limb of a corpse. And these are the words of Reb Meir, but Reb Shimon declares it tahor. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
That's it.
What should we do? I guess the next time we're going to do this is Thursday.
That's right.
Yeah.
So take your break during shul to do your chazar, to do the Mishnahs for tomorrow, or else tomorrow night.
If I don't fall asleep, right? During the break. Are you having a break tomorrow for a long time, or?